Hey there, patron, and later on YouTube. It is I, Brian Keene, back with another episode of Secret Histories. Today we're going to talk about Clickers 3, Dagon Rising, by myself and my longtime writing partner, my best writing partner, my best friend, J.F. Gonzalez. And this is a heavy book to talk about. So let's just jump right in. First of all, let's get all these out of the way so we have an easier time of fitting things in frame. It is now April 2010. America's Great Recession is in full swing. I can't remember the official dates of the Great Recession, but I can tell you right now, we were feeling it. Both Jesus and I were getting paid late by Leisure Books, and they were our primary source of income. Our secondary source of income was the small press, the indie press, which was also in great trouble because there were too many indie presses, too many authors, and not enough readers. In the late 90s, early 2000s, readers perhaps had 24 signed limited edition hardcovers to purchase a year if they wanted everything by everybody. By 2010, it's probably more like 300, 400 in a year. The market could not support that. The market was collapsing. So we were getting paid late by those folks too. We were both desperate for money. And that's why we wrote Clickers 3. There's no bones about it. We wrote this book for money. At the time, we had been offered a gig to write for the William W. Johnstone estate. They wanted us to write this big men's adventure epic, and it would have been decent money. Ultimately, we turned that gig down. And we wrote Clickers 3 instead, and I'm glad we did. It's a fun book. It's probably my least favorite in the Clickers series, but only because, I love the original that Jesus wrote with Mark. I love Clickers 2 because it was the first thing Jesus and I ever worked on together. And I love Clickers vs. Zombies because I think it is one of the best novels either one of us has ever written, and I mean that sincerely. Clickers 3, it's a perfectly serviceable book, but we were under an immense amount of pressure to write this thing, and we wrote it in a blaze. We wrote the book in a month, and sold it to Delirium just to get some money coming in. This would be the last book I would do with Delirium. Shortly after this, the owner told me that he accused me of only giving him my B-list books, meaning things like the Hail Satan books and short story collections. And I was incensed by that. I looked back at my shelves and I'm like, we did everything from The Rising, City of the Dead, Earthworm Gods, Ghoul, Dark Hollow, Ghost Walk, Dead Sea. Did all these great novels together. I don't see those as B-list books. I gave you the books that you consider B-list because I thought you were a good place to do them. If you didn't want to fucking do them, you shouldn't have bought them. Oh, but Brian Keene's a license to print money, so okay, you can go ahead and buy them and print them and then spit on me for it later. If I sound like I'm still angry about this, I am still angry about this. And this was 2010, and it's 2025, and you're goddamn right. It still sticks in my craw. Anyway, this was the last book I did with Delirium. And within a year, there was no more Delirium books. The small press apocalypse of 2010 occurred, and about 80% of the indie publishers, small press publishers, went under. When it was done, I guess left standing were Cemetery Dance, Subterranean, Thunderstorm Books, who had just launched, PS Publishing, Centipede, and Necro Publications. And I think that's about it. Yeah, what a time to be alive, man. Anyway, Jesus and I did have fun writing this. As I said, we wrote it in a month for the money. Delirium did a hardcover edition. Oh, don't worry, we're not done. We're just getting started. Usually this is the part of the video where we're getting done, but no, there's more to come. 300 numbered copies, 26 deluxe lettered. This is the lettered. It was a good looking book. Delirium made great looking books back in the day. They also did a trade paperback, which brings us to the second part of this video. Jesus and I wanted to make money. We wanted to make royalties. Therefore, we needed the book to sell. So we did what we always did. We went on tour. Now understand, we did not have the money to go on tour. And the publisher wasn't paying for us to go on tour. We were financing it out of pocket. That caused some stress in both of our homes. In my home, I knew my marriage was in trouble. I knew my marriage was in big trouble, and it had been for a while. And we've talked about that in previous videos. I had written and completed a novella called The Girl in the Glider, which was everything I wanted to say to my wife, but I couldn't find the words to say it. I could only say it through writing. I knew that if she read The Girl in the Glider, she'd understand some things about me, and she'd understand how I felt. And it would probably save our marriage. Problem with that was I had sold The Girl in the Glider to Cemetery Dance. Not always the quickest to bring books out. And The Girl in the Glider came out after Clickers 3, which is unfortunate because when Jesus and I went on tour for Clickers 3, I was still married. And when I got home, I found out that my marriage was indeed over, and that we were going to separate. And look, folks, here's the thing. My ex-wife, she and I are best friends. I love her. I adore her. We have co-parented together and raised an amazing child. I would move heaven and earth for her, even to this day. I bear her no ill will. I know what I was like back then. We have talked in these videos about what I was like back then. I do not blame her. I realize how ridiculous it sounds to say that, well, instead of talking to her, I decided I would write it in a novella. But that's the way my mind worked back then. I make no excuses for it. I've been to a lot of therapy since then, and I'm here to tell you that shit works and it helps. I am not talking bad about her. I'm not using this to air any dirty laundry. I'm simply doing what we've done in all the Secret Origins videos, telling you what was going on behind the scenes so that you'll understand how they inform the books, how they inform my career, and in some cases, how they inform the rest of our industry. And this is one of those cases. Jesus and I, we did not do a cross-country tour for this one because we didn't have the money. But we always had really good luck on the West Coast. So what we did is we did a We did a couple signings in Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and Virginia. And then we headed out to the West Coast. We did, oh, and we had Mike Oliveri with us. Mike had a new book out at that time, a werewolf novel. And we had Mike with us. We did Mysterious Galaxy in San Diego. We did Borderlands in San Francisco. We did Dark Delicacies in California. There's a great picture from that signing at Dark Delicacies. Mike Oliveri took it, so Mike's not in the picture. But it's David J. Scow and Jesus and I at Dark Delicacies. And I've got a big old Christopher Triana beard, and I got a beer in my hand. I'm wearing a Johnny Cash shirt and a trucker cap. Jesus and Dave are talking, and I look like I'm listening, but I'm not. I was deep in thought, and what I was thinking about is I was worried about my marriage. That night we went to David's house. He had a beautiful deck that overlooked LA. He lived up in the Hollywood Hills, up near the Hollywood sign. And he had neighbors like Larry King and Marilyn Manson. It was a wild scene. But on his deck, you could see all of the city. And there's another picture from that. Myself, Jesus, Mike Oliveri, along with John Skip and Cody Goodfellow and Richard Christian Matheson. And we're talking, and if you go back and tell 18-year-old Brian he'd get to be, hanging at Dave Scow's house with Scow and Matheson and Skip, he'd have been gleeful. But you look at the Brian in that picture, and again, he's thinking about everything that's going on at home. He's noticing that at these signings, they are not as well attended as previous signings because people don't have the money because we're in a recession. The book isn't selling as well. He's thinking about all those things. The next day, Mike and Jesus and I drove to San Francisco. We signed at Borderlands. That night, we caught red eyes home. Jesus and I landed at Baltimore. We didn't use Harrisburg Airport back then. We landed at Baltimore. And we drove home. And I won't tell you the details of that conversation. But we both knew that another horror crash was upon us. Just like the one from the mid-90s that took everybody down. We knew it. We knew it was here. And we also both suspected that I was about to experience an even worse crash. And sure enough, I did. Would the girl in the glider have saved my marriage? No, probably not. But it's one of the truest things I ever wrote. And we're going to get into that in our next video. The next few videos are going to be interesting. It's the girl in the glider, leader of the band, and Gathering of Crows, which is when the collapse happens. It's when horror goes away again. And I know everything is dark right now, but I'm here to tell you it gets lively again. You just got to hang in there. We're going to talk about Jesus a lot more in those. Because he was instrumental in helping me. And I don't think I'm tooting my own horn. I don't think it's egotistical to say this because historians, critics, and reviewers have said it. Jesus was absolutely essential in helping me rebuild the genre up from the ashes all over again, just like we'd done in the late 90s. And we will talk about that, and we'll talk about Brian Smith's contributions, and we'll talk about author Mary Sangiovanni's contributions, who was still at that point just a friend, but not too much longer in this video series will become something more than that. We will get to all of that. I have really enjoyed doing these for you, and I appreciate you watching them. We are, by my tally, about halfway through. Um, I've tried to remember as much as I can. In the case of every video, I realize after I've recorded it and posted it that there are things I forgot. Uh, but these are my memories, and it's been such a joyous, peaceful thing to share them with you, even when we're talking about bad things. Um, there's a sense of peace in finally getting to talk about some of them. So I really mean it when I say I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying these. Um, these and the new podcast conversations. I'm beyond gratified that people are enjoying that. Uh, I still have a lot more to say, and I will say it in the coming episodes. Peace. Thanks for watching. Until next time, click, 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 click.